Stop scrolling. Not because this is another motivational speech. Not because this will hype you up for 5 minutes and disappear. But because this is a warning. The kind of warning you don't hear loudly. The kind that arrives quietly years later, when it's too late to do anything about it. One day sooner than you think, you'll pause in the middle of your life. Maybe late at night. Maybe during a random moment when nothing special is happening. And you'll think about 2026. Not as a year on a calendar, but as a missed opportunity. And that's when the realization hits. You had time. You had chances. And somehow, you still wasted it. Not wasted in dramatic ways. Not through huge mistakes or obvious failures. But through delay. Through hesitation. Through waiting. The quiet way people lose years. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. That's the lie we tell ourselves to feel better. The truth is harder. Most people fail because they delay. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait to feel ready. They wait for confidence to arrive first. They tell themselves things like, I'll start once things calm down. I just need more time. Next month will be better. I'm not ready yet. And those thoughts sound reasonable. Responsible even. But here's what no one tells you. Time doesn't pause while you're preparing. Life doesn't stop moving just because you're unsure. Days keep passing. Weeks blur together. Months disappear quietly. And then 1 year turns into 3. 3 into 5. And suddenly a decade has passed. Not because you failed, but because you waited. How years disappear without you noticing. Think about it. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides, today I'll waste a whole year of my life. It happens slowly. You wake up tired. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. You scroll a little longer. You push one important task to the next day. You stay busy but not productive. Distracted but exhausted. And because nothing bad happens immediately, you assume everything is fine. But years don't disappear loudly. They fade. Quietly. Politely. Without asking permission. Until one day you realize something terrifying. You've been busy surviving, but not building anything. The uncomfortable truth about 2026. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. 2026 is not waiting for you. It's not waiting for you to feel confident. It's not waiting for clarity. It's not waiting for motivation. It's coming whether you prepare or not. The calendar will flip. The days will pass. And time will move forward, with or without your permission. And when you reach the end of 2026, there will be 2 versions of you standing there. One version looks back and says, I'm proud I started early. I stayed consistent. I didn't wait for perfect conditions. I showed up even when it was uncomfortable. The other version says something very different. I can't believe I let another year slip away. I had plans but no action. I was always about to start. I waited and waited and waited. Both versions had the same time. The same year. The same opportunities. The difference was not talent. It was decisions. Why waiting feels safe but destroys progress. Waiting feels comfortable. It protects your ego. It protects you from failure. It gives you excuses. As long as you haven't started, you can still imagine success. You can still tell yourself, I could do it if I tried. I just haven't started yet. But once you begin, everything becomes real. Mistakes show up. Doubts get louder. Progress feels slow. So waiting feels safer. But safety is expensive. It costs you growth. It costs you momentum. It costs you years you'll never get back. And the cruel part? The pain of waiting doesn't hit immediately. It shows up later. As regret. The moment people realize too late. There's a moment that comes for everyone. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock loudly. It arrives quietly. You see someone younger than you doing what you once dreamed of. You hear an opportunity that feels too late now. You realize your habits haven't changed in years. And suddenly the thought appears. I should have started earlier. That thought is heavy. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's true. And once that moment arrives, motivation doesn't help anymore. Only acceptance does. This isn't about pressure. It's about direction. This message is not here to scare you. It's here to redirect you. Because right now, before 2026 truly begins, you still have something powerful. Choice. You still get to decide. Will this year be another rehearsal? Or will it be the year you finally step on stage? You don't need to transform overnight. You don't need a perfect plan. You need movement. Even slow movement counts. Even messy action matters. What destroys years is not failure. It's inactivity. The small decisions that shape an entire year. People think years change through big moments. They don't. Years change through small, daily decisions that feel insignificant at the time. Choosing to wake up instead of snoozing. Choosing to work even when it's boring. Choosing to stop scrolling and start building. These choices don't feel heroic, but repeated daily they become life-changing. And the opposite is also true. Small delays repeated daily create massive regret. The version of you that 2026 is creating. Whether you pay attention or not, 2026 is shaping you. Every habit you repeat is reinforcing an identity. Every excuse you accept is becoming normal. Every delay is teaching you who you are. You are not staying the same. You are becoming someone, slowly. The question is, are you becoming someone you respect? Or someone you'll have to explain? The final truth most people avoid. Here's the final truth, and it's uncomfortable. No one is coming to save your year. No one is coming to push you daily. No one will care more about your future than you do. Motivation videos won't change your life. Good intentions won't either. Only action will. And action doesn't start when you feel ready. It starts when you decide waiting has cost you enough. Why this moment matters more than you think. This moment, right now, is more important than it feels. Because years don't change suddenly. They change when someone makes a quiet decision and sticks to it. 2026 doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be consistent. It needs you to stop waiting for confidence and start building it. It needs you to stop planning forever and start doing something today. The choice that defines everything. 1 year from now, you will look back on this exact moment. And you'll either think, this is when things shifted. Or, this is when I ignored the warning. This story isn't here to motivate you. It's here to remind you. Time is passing. The year is coming. And the choice is already in your hands. Don't waste 2026. Not because it sounds good. But because one day you'll wish you hadn't. And by then, will be too late. Let's be honest. Most people don't intentionally waste a year. They don't wake up on January 1st and decide, this year I'll stay stuck. That's not how it happens. They waste it quietly. It happens in the smallest, most reasonable ways. In the soft promises they make to themselves and never challenge. In the delays that feel harmless in the moment. I'll start next month. After this busy phase. Once things calm down. Those words sound responsible. They sound patient. They sound like self-care. But they're not. Because things never calm down. Life doesn't pause and step aside so you can work on yourself. It doesn't lower its volume or clear space on your calendar. Life doesn't give space, it takes it. And if you don't protect your time deliberately, it gets swallowed whole. The quiet drift. At first, nothing feels wrong. You wake up, check your phone, scroll for a few minutes. You tell yourself you deserve it, you're tired after all. Then the day starts pulling at you. Messages. Tasks. Responsibilities. Other people's needs. You think, I'll focus later. Later becomes the evening. The evening becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Days fill up with small distractions that don't feel like distractions. A little scrolling here. Quick video there. One more episode because the day was hard. Weeks blur into routines. You do the same things in the same order with the same tired thoughts looping in your head. Months pass with no real progress. Not because you didn't work hard, you did. Not because you didn't try, you tried in pieces. But because you never aimed your effort in one clear direction. And then suddenly December arrives. It always feels sudden. The year ends faster than you expect, and you're standing in the same place holding the same goals you promised yourself last January. The same dreams. The same frustrations. The same quiet disappointment you try not to look at too closely. You tell yourself next year will be different. But deep down something feels off. Because you've said that before. The moment of recognition. There's a specific moment most people remember. It might be late at night when the house is finally quiet. Or early in the morning, when the world hasn't started demanding things yet. Or during a random pause in the day when everything goes still for just a second. You look at your life and think, how did I get here again? You're not angry. You're not dramatic. You're just tired. Tired of repeating the same internal conversation. Tired of motivating yourself in circles. Tired of feeling like you're capable of more but never quite reaching it. That's when the truth starts to surface. A new year didn't fail you. Time didn't betray you. Circumstances didn't block you. Your patterns did. Because a new year doesn't change your life. New actions do. And actions don't start on January 1st. They start on ordinary days. The lie of someday. Someday is comforting. Someday is where dreams go to feel safe. It has no deadlines. No pressure. No responsibility. I'll get serious someday. I'll fix this someday. I'll become that version of myself someday. But someday never arrives. Because someday isn't a date, it's an excuse. It keeps you from facing the discomfort of starting when you don't feel ready. It protects you from the risk of trying and failing. It allows you to stay where you are without admitting you've chosen to stay. The hardest truth is this. If you keep living the same days, you'll keep getting the same years. Different calendar. Same habits. Same outcomes. And if you don't change how you start your days, 2026 will look exactly like every year before it. How days really begin. Most people think change starts with big decisions. A dramatic plan. A perfect routine. A burst of motivation that finally sticks. But that's not how it works. Change starts quietly. It starts with how you wake up. Do you reach for your phone immediately, or do you take a breath and choose intention? Do you react to the world, or do you set the tone first? Do you begin the day by giving your attention away or by claiming it? The first 30 minutes of your day shape the next 12 hours. And those hours shape your weeks. And those weeks become your year. You don't need a perfect morning routine. You need a conscious one. One small decision that says, today I lead my time instead of surrendering it. The resistance you'll feel. Here's what no one tells you honestly. When you try to change, it will feel uncomfortable. Not exciting. Not empowering. Uncomfortable. You'll feel resistance the moment you try to do something different. Your mind will argue with you. Not today. You can do this later. You're already behind. What's the point? That voice isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something new. Your brain prefers familiarity even when familiarity hurts you. It would rather repeat a known struggle than risk an unknown one. Growth feels threatening before it feels rewarding. That's normal. The myth of motivation. Most people are waiting for motivation to arrive before they act. They think one day they'll wake up feeling ready, focused, confident, certain. But motivation doesn't come first. Action does. Motivation is a response to movement, not a prerequisite for it. You don't feel motivated and then start. You start and then motivation slowly catches up. Even on the days it doesn't, you still move. That's the difference. People who change their lives don't feel inspired every day. They feel committed. They don't ask, do I feel like it? They ask, who am I becoming by doing this? The power of small integrity. Big goals are built through small acts of integrity. Doing what you said you would do, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Waking up when you promised yourself you would. Working on the thing that scares you instead of avoiding it. Stopping when you know something is pulling you backward. Each time you follow through, you send yourself a message. I can trust myself. Each time you don't, you send another. My word doesn't matter. Years aren't lost all at once. They're lost one broken promise at a time. Why waiting is so dangerous. Waiting feels harmless. You're not saying no, you're saying later. You're not quitting, you're pausing. But pauses have momentum. The longer you wait, the heavier starting feels. The longer you delay, the more your confidence erodes. The longer you postpone, the more your goals begin to feel unrealistic, even though they aren't. Waiting doesn't preserve potential. It slowly suffocates it. And one day you look back and realize the cost wasn't time. It was belief. Choosing a different ending. Imagine this instead. Imagine reaching the end of 2026 and feeling something unfamiliar. Not because everything went perfectly. Not because you achieved every goal. But because you showed up. You tried. You stayed consistent longer than before. You didn't abandon yourself when it got uncomfortable. You became someone you respect. That feeling doesn't come from luck. It comes from daily decisions that no one applauds. From choosing action over comfort. From starting even when the conditions aren't ideal. From refusing to let another year slip by on autopilot. The question that matters. The question isn't whether 2026 will be different. It will come either way. The real question is this. Will you still be negotiating with yourself? Or will you finally be someone who acts? Will you still be waiting for the right moment? Or will you become the person who creates momentum? Because time is moving, with or without your permission. And one day you'll look back. Make sure when you do, you recognize the person you see. Not someone who meant well. Not someone who planned a lot. But someone who decided. And proved it through action. Start now. Not perfectly. Not loudly. Just honestly. Because the life you want isn't built next year. It's built today. You will never feel ready. Here's the first truth most people avoid. You will never feel ready. Not fully. Not completely. Not in the way you keep waiting for. There's this quiet belief most of us carry around, that one day something will click. That one morning you'll wake up and feel different. Stronger. Clearer. More confident. Like the fog will lift and the fear will disappear and suddenly you'll know what to do. But that moment doesn't come. Confidence does not arrive before action. Clarity does not appear before you start. Motivation does not show up first and invite you forward. They all come after. Yet so many people spend years waiting for them anyway. They tell themselves, I just need more time. I need to learn a bit more. I need to feel more sure. I'll start when I'm ready. And that sentence, when I'm ready, becomes a comfortable hiding place. Because it sounds responsible. It sounds smart. It sounds patient. But underneath it, something quieter is happening. Fear is making the decisions. The quiet delay. Most people don't quit their dreams loudly. They don't announce it. They don't say, I'm giving up. They delay. They push things back by a week, then a month, then a year. They keep planning. They keep thinking. They keep imagining how things could be. And on the outside it looks like preparation. But on the inside it's avoidance. Because starting means risking embarrassment. Starting means admitting you don't know everything. Starting means accepting that you might fail publicly. So instead people wait. They wait for confidence to appear. They wait for motivation to strike. They wait for clarity to arrive and tell them exactly what to do. But clarity doesn't work that way. Clarity comes from movement. You don't see the path clearly until you're already walking it. The lie of readiness. Think about every person you admire. Every successful creator. Every entrepreneur. Every athlete, artist, leader, or builder. Not the polished version you see now, but the version they were at the beginning. They were unsure. They were underqualified. They doubted themselves. They questioned their ideas at night. They wondered if they were wasting time. They felt like everyone else knew something they didn't. They weren't confident. They were scared. The difference wasn't that they felt ready. The difference was that they moved despite not feeling ready. They didn't wait for fear to disappear. They carried it with them. Starting feels wrong at first. No one talks enough about how uncomfortable starting feels. How awkward the first attempts are. How clumsy your early work looks. How loud your inner critic becomes when you finally take action. At the beginning, nothing flows. Your hands feel slow. Your thoughts feel scattered. Your results feel disappointing. And that's exactly when most people stop. They look at their first attempt and think, this proves I'm not good at this. But that's not proof. That's just the beginning. Every skill feels unnatural before it feels normal. Every habit feels forced before it feels automatic. You don't build confidence to start. You build confidence by starting. The cost of waiting. Waiting feels safe. It feels like you're protecting yourself. But there's a cost to waiting that most people don't notice until years later. The cost is momentum you never built. The cost is skills you never developed. The cost is a version of yourself that never had a chance to exist. Dreams don't usually die from one big decision. They die from postponement. From telling yourself, I'll do it later. Later becomes next year. Next year becomes someday. Someday becomes never. And one day you look back and realize the window didn't close suddenly. You just never stepped through it. Why confidence comes last. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's a byproduct. It's what shows up when your brain has evidence that you can handle discomfort. Confidence is built when you try and survive, fail and adjust, show up again even when it's uncomfortable. Your brain doesn't trust promises. It trusts experience. You can tell yourself all day that you're capable, but until you act, your mind won't believe you. Action is what rewires belief. Not affirmations. Not motivation videos. Not overthinking. Movement. The myth of perfect planning. Planning feels productive. Feels like control. But perfect planning is often just fear wearing a professional outfit. You can't plan your way into confidence. You can't research your way out of uncertainty. At some point, information stops helping and starts delaying. Messy action beats perfect planning every single time. Because action gives feedback. Planning just gives comfort. You don't need a perfect system to begin. You need a starting point. Starting small is still starting. Starting doesn't mean changing your whole life overnight. It doesn't mean quitting everything. It doesn't mean massive risk. It means one imperfect step. One small action you can take today, even if it feels insignificant. Write one page. Practice for 10 minutes. Publish something imperfect. Show up once when you normally wouldn't. Small starts are powerful because they break the illusion that you need to be ready. They prove that movement is possible now. And once you move once, moving again becomes easier. The fear doesn't mean stop. Fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal that you're stepping into growth. Every meaningful change feels threatening to the brain because it breaks routine. Your mind prefers familiar discomfort over unfamiliar progress. So when fear shows up, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It usually means you're doing something new. And new always feels uncomfortable before it feels normal. Practice creates the person. You don't become the person first and then act. You act, and the person forms around those actions. You don't wake up one day as someone disciplined. You practice discipline until it becomes part of your identity. You don't suddenly become confident. You repeatedly show up unsure until confidence catches up. Identity is shaped through repetition, not intention. Why 2026 matters. If there's something you've been postponing, a skill you want to learn, a project you want to start, a habit you know would change your life, 2026 isn't the year to prepare more. It's the year to practice. Practice being inconsistent at first. Practice being uncomfortable. Practice being bad before you get better. Practice showing up even when motivation is low. Because motivation follows action, not the other way around. The shift that changes everything. The moment things begin to change isn't when fear disappears. It's when you stop asking, "Am I ready?" and start asking, "What's one small thing I can do today?" That question removes pressure. It removes perfection. It removes excuses. Puts control back in your hands. Start imperfect. Stay consistent. Your first attempt doesn't need to be impressive. It just needs to exist. The people who succeed aren't the ones who had the best plans. They're the ones who stayed in the game long enough for progress to compound. They didn't wait for confidence. They built it step by step. The only real mistake is not starting. Not because failure is worse than waiting, but because waiting guarantees nothing changes. Action, even messy action, creates possibility. And possibility is where growth lives. Final truth. You will never feel ready. And that's not a problem. That's the starting point. Start small. Start imperfect. But start today. Because the life you want isn't built in moments of readiness. It's built in moments of courage when you move forward anyway. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is reliable. Motivation feels good. That's the first thing you notice about it. It arrives quietly on days when the sun is out, when your sleep was decent, when your problems feel manageable. It whispers promises into your ear. Today is the day. This time will be different. Your chest feels lighter. Your thoughts feel sharper. You open your phone, watch a video, read a quote, and suddenly you believe again. You imagine the version of yourself who finally has it together. The one who wakes up early. The one who stays consistent. The one who doesn't quit halfway. And for a moment it feels real. Motivation makes you feel powerful. It makes starting feel easy. It gives you a rush of certainty, like momentum before momentum even exists. But motivation has a flaw most people don't talk about. It only shows up when life is easy. When life is easy. On good days, motivation feels like a loyal friend. You wake up and don't hit snooze. You sit down to work without forcing yourself. You tell yourself, "See? This isn't so hard." Those are the days people fall in love with motivation. They think this is how progress works, that if they just wait for the right feeling, the right energy, the right mindset, they'll move forward naturally. And sometimes, for a short while, they do. But life doesn't stay easy. It never has. When life gets heavy, the hard days don't announce themselves. They just arrive. You wake up tired even after sleeping. Your mind feels foggy. Something small goes wrong, a message, a bill, an unexpected delay, and suddenly everything feels heavier than it should. This is where motivation disappears. Not dramatically. Not with a goodbye. It just doesn't show up. You sit there waiting for the spark you felt before. You scroll. You delay. You tell yourself, "I'll do it later when I feel better." And that moment, that small decision to wait, is where most people stop. Not because they're lazy. Not because they don't care. But because their progress depended on how they felt. The problem with feelings. Feelings change. Energy fluctuates. Confidence comes and goes. If your commitment only exists when you feel good, then discomfort will always beat you. The first boring day. The first slow week. The first time effort doesn't give immediate results. That's when people quit quietly. They don't announce it. They don't say, "I've given up." They just stop showing up. One skipped day turns into two. Two turns into a week. And eventually, the goal becomes something they used to care about. Discipline doesn't feel inspiring. Discipline doesn't give you a rush. It doesn't make promises. It doesn't hype you up. It doesn't care if you're tired, unmotivated, or unsure. Discipline is simple. It asks one question. What needs to be done? Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. No. Discipline shows up when motivation is silent. On the days when progress feels boring. When effort feels invisible. When quitting would feel easier than continuing. That's when discipline does its real work. The unseen days. Most progress is invisible. No one talks about the quiet mornings, the repetitive routines, the days that feel identical to the ones before. There's no applause for those moments. No validation. No instant reward. Just you. Doing the work anyway. This is where people think they're failing, when nothing dramatic is happening. When there's no emotional high to confirm they're on the right path. But this is exactly where change is happening. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Slowly. Motivation chases emotion. Discipline builds structure. Motivation reacts to life. Discipline creates stability within it. Motivation says, I'll start when I feel inspired. Discipline says, I start at 6 o'clock no matter what. Motivation needs perfect conditions. Discipline works with imperfect ones. And the truth most people avoid is this. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer decisions. Build systems, not moods. In 2026, stop chasing motivation videos. Not because they're useless, but because they're temporary. What actually changes your life are systems. Simple. Boring. Repeatable systems. You wake up at the same time every day. Not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are now. You work even when it's dull. Even when progress feels slow. Even when no one is watching. You remove the question of if and replace it with when. This is how discipline quietly takes control. Small promises matter. Most people think discipline is built through big sacrifices. It's not. It's built through small promises kept consistently. You say you'll work for 20 minutes and you do. You say you'll show up, and you show up. You say you'll stop scrolling, and you stop. These moments seem insignificant. But your mind is paying attention. Every time you do what you said you would, something shifts internally. A quiet message forms. I can trust myself. The power of self-trust. Self-trust is not confidence. It's deeper than that. Confidence is believing you can do something. Self-trust is knowing you will. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when no one else knows. People with self-trust don't rely on motivation. They rely on identity. They don't ask, do I feel like it? They say, this is what I do. When discipline changes everything. Once self-trust is built, everything else becomes easier. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become steadier. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for the perfect mood. You stop needing external validation to continue. You move forward even on bad days. Especially on bad days. Because those are the days that matter most. 2026 is not about feeling ready. You will not feel ready. You never have. The people who change their lives don't wait for clarity, motivation, or confidence. They act first. And clarity follows. They don't feel disciplined. They practice discipline. And over time, that practice becomes identity. The quiet shift. One day, without realizing it, you look back. You notice you don't break promises to yourself as easily anymore. You notice you start tasks without drama. You notice discomfort doesn't scare you the way it used to. Nothing magical happened. You just showed up enough times to become someone new. Final truth. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is reliable. Motivation fades when life gets hard. Discipline carries you through it. If your progress depends on how you feel, you will always be at the mercy of your emotions. But when your progress depends on systems, on habits, on promises kept quietly, you become unstoppable. Because the most powerful thing you can build isn't motivation. It's trust with yourself. And once you have that, everything changes. Create more than you consume. Most people don't feel overwhelmed because they're incapable. They feel overwhelmed because they're drowning in information. Every day begins the same way. A phone lights up. A thumb starts moving. One video turns into another. One post becomes 20. Before they realize it, an hour is gone, sometimes more. It doesn't feel harmful in the moment. It feels normal. Everyone does it. Scrolling. Watching. Comparing. The mind stays busy but the soul stays empty. People assume they're falling behind because they don't know enough. So they keep consuming. More videos, more advice, more opinions. They bookmark ideas they never use. Save posts they never return to. Listen to voices that slowly drown out their own. And the strangest part is this. The more they consume, the more stuck they feel. Not because the information is bad, but because creation never happens. The quiet trap of watching others win. There's a subtle danger in watching other people's progress too closely. At first, it feels motivating. You see someone building a business, writing a book, learning a skill, transforming their life. You think, if they can do it, so can I. But over time, something shifts. Their progress becomes entertainment. Their discipline becomes content. Their effort becomes something you watch instead of something you practice. You start to confuse inspiration with participation. You know their story better than your own. You follow their routine more closely than yours. You cheer for them, while quietly delaying your own start. And comparison creeps in. Why are they so consistent? Why do they seem so confident? Why does it look easy for them and heavy for me? The mind begins to whisper lies. I'm late. I should be further ahead. What's the point of starting now? So you scroll more, not to grow but to escape the discomfort of not creating. Overwhelm isn't a lack of time, it's a lack of output. Most people think overwhelm comes from too much responsibility, too many goals, too many expectations. But real overwhelm comes from unused potential. Ideas that never leave the mind. Skills that never get practiced. Thoughts that never turn into action. The brain was never designed to be a storage unit. It was designed to be a factory. When ideas don't move outward, they pile up inward. They turn into pressure. Then anxiety. Then self-doubt. You don't feel overwhelmed because you're incapable. You feel overwhelmed because you're not expressing what's inside you. Creation releases pressure. Consumption adds to it. In 2026, flip the ratio. If you want next year to feel different, one thing has to change. Not your goals. Not your motivation. Not your personality. Your ratio. Right now, for most people, the balance looks like this. Consume all day. Create someday. In 2026, flip it. Create more than you consume. That doesn't mean quitting social media. It doesn't mean becoming extreme or unrealistic. It means being intentional. Before you scroll, create. Before you watch, build. Before you compare, practice. Even if it's messy. Even if it's slow. Even if nobody notices yet. Especially then. Write instead of scrolling. There's a quiet power in writing. Not for likes. Not for validation. But for clarity. When you write, thoughts stop racing. They line up. They slow down. You don't need to be a writer. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't even need an audience. A notebook is enough. A notes app will do. Write what you're confused about. Write what you're learning. Write what you're afraid of. Write what you want, even if it feels unrealistic. Scrolling keeps thoughts shallow. Writing forces depth. And depth is where confidence is built. Build instead of watching. Watching feels productive. Building feels uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. Building exposes gaps. Watching hides them. When you build, you notice what you don't know. When you watch, you can pretend you're improving without risking failure. But growth doesn't come from observation. It comes from friction. Build the skill badly. Launch the idea imperfectly. Start the project before you feel ready. Read less about confidence. And do more things that require it. Confidence doesn't arrive before action. It is created by action. Practice instead of comparing. Comparison is the easiest way to lose momentum. Not because others are better, but because comparison shifts focus away from progress. You don't see their years of failure. You don't feel their doubts. You don't live their constraints. You only see the highlight. And judge your behind the scenes against it. Practice is different. Practice is private. Messy. Unglamorous. No applause. No algorithm. Just repetition. And repetition builds skill quietly. Until one day it looks like confidence from the outside. Even if nobody sees it yet. This is where most people quit. When effort feels invisible. When progress feels slow. When results don't match expectations. They assume something is wrong. But invisibility is part of the process. Roots grow underground first. Muscle strengthens before it shows. Skills sharpen before they stand out. If you only create when you're seen, you'll stop early. If you create when nobody's watching, you'll last. The people who win long-term aren't chasing attention. They're building foundations. Even if it feels small. Small actions feel insignificant. Until you stop doing them. 5 minutes of writing doesn't feel life-changing. One practice session doesn't feel impressive. One small project doesn't feel meaningful. But consistency compounds quietly. What feels small today becomes skill tomorrow. What feels pointless now becomes momentum later. The goal isn't to impress. The goal is to show up. Over and over. Creation builds confidence. Consumption drains it. This is the truth most people don't want to hear. Confidence doesn't come from motivation. It doesn't come from affirmations. It doesn't come from watching confident people. It comes from proof. Proof that you can start. Proof that you can continue. Proof that you can finish something, even imperfectly. Every time you create, you send yourself a message. I can do something difficult. Every time you only consume, the opposite message forms quietly. I'm just watching life happen. Over time, those messages shape identity. The world rewards builders, not observers. The world doesn't reward intentions. It doesn't reward potential. It doesn't reward preparation without action. It rewards output. Not perfect output. Not viral output. Real output. The people who move ahead aren't the smartest. They're the ones who create despite doubt, despite fear, despite not feeling ready. They trade comfort for progress, observation for participation. And that choice changes everything. Make 2026 the year you start producing. You don't need a new system. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need permission. You need to begin. Create one thing today. Write one page. Practice one skill. Build one small piece of what matters to you. Not tomorrow. Not when it feels easier. Today. Because the moment you shift from consuming to creating, everything changes. Overwhelm fades. Clarity grows. Confidence follows. And slowly, quietly, you stop watching other people build their lives and start building your own. Willpower is weak. Environment is strong. That's not a motivational quote. It's an explanation. Because if willpower was enough, you would have already changed. You would have already stayed consistent. You would have already stopped scrolling, stopped overeating, stopped procrastinating, stopped delaying the life you keep saying you want. But you don't. And it's not because you're broken. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you don't want it enough. It's because you're fighting the wrong battle. You keep trying to win with willpower in an environment designed for you to lose. 1. The phone test. Let me paint a scene you'll recognize. It's late. Not super late, but late enough that you know you should sleep. Your body is tired, your brain is foggy, and your day has already taken everything out of you. You tell yourself, just 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes of scrolling. Just a little break. Your phone is right there. On the bed. On the pillow. On the table next to you. Within reach like it belongs there. You pick it up without thinking. Thumb moves automatically. One video. One more. A funny one. A dramatic one. A motivational one. A sad one. You don't even remember what you watched 2 minutes ago, but you keep going. And then you glance at the time and your stomach drops. An hour is gone. 2 hours. Now you're upset at yourself. Why am I like this? Why can't I control myself? Tomorrow I'll do better. But tomorrow comes and the phone is still in the same place. The same reach. The same temptation. The same loop. And slowly, quietly, your life becomes a series of tomorrows. 2. Why willpower always loses at night. Here's what most people don't understand. Willpower is not a personality trait. It's not something you either have or don't have. Willpower is a battery. And every day life drains it. You use willpower to wake up. To get through work. To deal with people. To handle stress. To stay polite when you're frustrated. To keep going when you're tired. So by the time you reach the evening, you're not weak. You're empty. And that's the moment your environment takes over. The easiest thing becomes the default thing. Phone within reach? Scroll. Snacks visible? TV on? Watch. Notifications buzzing? React. Not because you're a failure, but because humans always choose what's easiest when they're drained. So if your environment makes the wrong things easy, you'll keep doing the wrong things even with the best intentions. 3. The kitchen truth nobody wants to admit. Now think about the last time you promised yourself you would eat better. You meant it. You said it with confidence. You even imagined the new you. But then you walked into your kitchen. And what was there? Chips. Chocolate. Soda. Bread. Instant noodles. Cookies. Just in case. And maybe you tried to resist. Maybe you lasted 1 day. 2 days. 3. But then one stressful day hit. One exhausting moment. One bad mood. One argument. One disappointment. And suddenly your brain didn't want healthy. It wanted comfort. And comfort was right there, visible and easy. So you grabbed it. And later you blamed yourself. But let's be honest. If the junk food is visible, you'll eat it. If it's easy, you'll choose it. If it's available, you'll justify it. Not because you lack discipline, but because your environment is voting against you every single day. For the real problem, you're living in a trap. Distractions are everywhere now. Not because you're weak, but because the world is built that way. The phone is designed to pull attention. Apps are designed to keep you hooked. Notifications are designed to interrupt you. Even your home can become a place that trains your brain to switch off instead of show up. So when you try to focus, it feels painful. Your mind starts itching for stimulation. You keep checking. You keep shifting. You keep starting and stopping. And after a while you think, Maybe I'm not meant for focus. Maybe I can't be consistent. Maybe discipline isn't for people like me. But that's not true. You're trying to build a focused life inside a distracted room. And that's why the main message matters. Stop blaming yourself. Start designing your surroundings. 5. The moment it clicks. There's a moment that changes everything for people. It usually happens after they've tried and failed so many times that they're tired of motivational advice. They realize something simple. I keep promising change, but I keep returning to the same setup. Same phone habits. Same room. Same triggers. Same layout. Same routine. And it hits them. Maybe I don't need more willpower. Maybe I need a better environment. Maybe I need to make the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder. And when that realization lands, it feels like relief. Because now it's not about self-hate. It's about strategy. 6. Make the wrong choices inconvenient. Here's what make the wrong actions harder actually looks like in real life. Not dramatic changes. Not unrealistic routines. Just small moves that change behavior automatically. If scrolling is the problem, remove the apps that steal your time. Not one day. Today. Log out so it takes effort to re-enter. Turn off notifications. All of them. Keep your phone out of your bedroom. Charge it outside. Because if your phone is always within reach, you'll scroll. The goal is not to be strong. The goal is to make scrolling annoying. To add friction. So your brain pauses long enough to choose differently. 7. Make the right choices automatic. Now the other side. Make the right actions easier. If you want to read more, put the book where your phone used to be. On the pillow. On the table. On the couch. If you want to drink more water, keep a water bottle visible. Not hidden in a cabinet. Visible. If you want to work out, put your shoes and clothes where you can see them. Make it easier to start than to delay. If you want to eat better, put healthy options at eye level. Prep them. Make them quick. Make them easy. Because your brain doesn't choose what's best. It chooses what's easiest. So you don't need to become a different person overnight. You need to design a space that helps the person you're trying to become. 8. Boundaries are not harsh, they're respect. A lot of people avoid boundaries because they feel extreme. They say things like, I don't want to be too strict. I want balance. I don't want to live like a robot. But here's the truth. Boundaries aren't punishment. Boundaries are protection. When you set a boundary, you're telling your future self, I respect you enough to make this easier. So when you set phone limits, you're not being strict. You're being wise. When you create a quiet workspace, you're not being dramatic. You're creating a place where your dreams can breathe. 9. Create quiet space even if it's small. You don't need a perfect office. You don't need a fancy setup. You just need one space that signals to your brain. This is where I show up. Even if it's a small corner. Even if it's one chair. Even if it's just a clean desk. A focused space is not about aesthetics. It's about identity. Because every time you sit there, your brain learns. This is who I am. And slowly, consistency becomes natural. Not because you suddenly found motivation, but because your environment trained you. 10. Change the room, and you change the results. This is the part most people underestimate. Your environment shapes your behavior more than motivation ever will. Not sometimes. Not occasionally. Every day. If you're surrounded by distractions, you'll live distracted. If you're surrounded by comfort, you'll choose comfort. If you're surrounded by chaos, your mind will feel chaotic. But if you design your space with intention, your habits start changing without you fighting so hard. In 2026, don't try to win every day with willpower. Win with design. Make the right actions easier, and the wrong ones harder. Remove apps. Set boundaries. Create quiet space. Because when you change the room, you change the results. And when your results change, your whole life starts to follow. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week, and underestimate what they can do in a year. That single misunderstanding quietly shapes entire lives. It's why so many people start with excitement and end with frustration. Why Monday feels hopeful but Sunday night feels heavy. Why goals feel possible in theory, yet unreachable in practice. Because when you zoom in too close, everything feels urgent. And when you zoom out too far, everything feels impossible. Big goals don't fail because they're unrealistic. They fail because you keep staring at the finish line instead of the ground beneath your feet. The weight of the finish line. When you think about where you want to be, truly think about it, it can feel crushing. The stronger body. The stable income. The creative project finished. The confident version of yourself who doesn't hesitate anymore. You see it all at once. And your mind immediately responds with doubt. That's too far. That's too much. I don't have time for all of that. So instead of starting small, you either rush or you freeze. You try to do everything in a week. You overhaul your routine overnight. You set impossible expectations. You promise yourself a transformation instead of a process. For a few days you push hard. You feel motivated. You feel serious. Then life happens. You miss one workout. One focused session slips. One long day drains your energy. And suddenly the whole plan feels broken. So you stop. Not because you failed, but because you expected progress to look dramatic instead of realistic. Why ordinary days matter more than big moments. Success is rarely built in moments that feel important. It's built on ordinary days. Days where nothing special happens. Days that feel boring. Days you'll never remember individually. That's where the real work lives. One workout done without motivation. One focused hour when distractions are loud. One honest effort when no one is watching. These actions don't feel powerful in the moment. They feel small. Almost insignificant. That's why most people dismiss them. They're waiting for something that feels like progress, instead of trusting the process that creates it. But progress doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly. The illusion of fast results. We live in a world that celebrates speed, quick wins, rapid growth, overnight success stories that skip the years of invisible effort. So naturally you start believing that if results don't come fast, something must be wrong. You think, if this mattered, I'd see change by now. If I were doing it right, this would feel more rewarding. If this was working, it wouldn't feel so slow. But slow doesn't mean ineffective. It means sustainable. Fast results excite you. Slow results change you. The compounding effect no one talks about. Daily actions compound the same way interest does. Not dramatically at first. Not noticeably. In the beginning, it almost feels pointless. One workout doesn't change your body. One focused hour doesn't change your career. One disciplined choice doesn't change your life. But repeat them. Again tomorrow. And the next day. And the day after that. Something shifts. Your body adapts. Your mind sharpens. Your confidence grows, quietly, internally, without permission. One day you look back and realize something unexpected. You're not the same person anymore. Not because of one big breakthrough, but because of hundreds of small, ordinary decisions you didn't quit on. Why consistency feels so unrewarding at first. Consistency doesn't look exciting. There's no rush, no applause, no dramatic moment where everything clicks. It's repetitive. It's unglamorous. It often feels like you're doing the same thing without visible payoff. That's where most people give up. They confuse boredom with failure. But boredom is often a sign you're doing the right thing. Because consistency removes novelty. And novelty is what tricks people into thinking they're making progress. Real growth is quieter than motivation. It's steadier than excitement. And far more powerful. The identity shift that changes everything. Here's what consistency really does. It changes how you see yourself. Every time you show up, you reinforce a new identity. I'm someone who keeps promises to myself. I'm someone who doesn't quit when it's uncomfortable. I'm someone who does the work even when it's boring. That identity compounds faster than results ever could. Because once you believe you're that person, your actions stop feeling forced. You don't rely on motivation. You rely on standards. And standards don't negotiate. Why a year is more powerful than you think. A year sounds long. But it's made of days. And days are manageable. You don't need to conquer a year. You just need to handle today. One workout today. One focused hour today. One honest effort today. Then repeat. That's it. Not perfection. Not intensity. Consistency. Most people underestimate a year because they never stay consistent long enough to see what's possible. They stop right before momentum starts working in their favor. The turning point. There's a quiet turning point that happens when you stop chasing fast results. You stop asking, is this working yet? And start asking, can I do this again tomorrow? You stop measuring progress emotionally and start measuring it behaviorally. Did I show up? Did I do the work? Did I keep my promise? That's when things begin to change, not just externally but internally. You feel calmer, more grounded, less desperate for validation. Because you're no longer trying to prove something. You're building something. The difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs wait for inspiration. Professionals rely on structure. Amateurs chase intensity. Professionals value consistency. Amateurs burn out. Professionals compound. This applies to everything: fitness, business, creativity, relationships, personal growth. The people who win aren't doing more in a week. They're doing less, more consistently, over a year. Stacking small wins. Small wins don't feel powerful alone. But stacked together they become unstoppable. 1 week of showing up builds trust. 1 month builds momentum. 6 months builds identity. 1 year changes your life. Not because you worked harder, but because you stopped quitting early. In 2026, stop chasing fast results. Stop asking for proof too soon. Stop abandoning processes that haven't had time to work. Stop confusing silence with stagnation. Start stacking small wins. Let the days do their quiet work. What extraordinary really looks like. Extraordinary outcomes don't come from extraordinary days. They come from ordinary days done extraordinarily well. Days where you still show up when motivation is low. Days where progress is invisible. Days where discipline replaces excitement. That's the work most people never see, and never stay with long enough to benefit from. But if you do, one day the results will speak for you, and they'll look effortless to everyone else. Even though you know the truth, they were built, one ordinary day at a time. The part nobody warns you about. People don't quit because it's hard. That's the part most people get wrong. Hard things don't scare us as much as we pretend they do. We've done hard things before. We've survived long nights, stressful days, painful moments, and uncomfortable seasons. We know how to endure difficulty when we can see something coming from it. People quit because results are slow. Because effort goes out, and nothing obvious comes back. Because they wake up tired, show up anyway, do the work, and still don't feel any closer than yesterday. That silence, that lack of visible reward, is what breaks people. Not the work itself. When effort feels like it disappears. There's a moment early in every meaningful journey where you start to wonder if you're wasting your time. You're putting in the hours. You're sacrificing comfort. You're choosing effort over ease. But on the outside, nothing looks different. No applause. No validation. No proof that what you're doing even matters. Your life looks the same. Your progress feels the same. Your doubts get louder. And slowly, quietly, a question starts forming in your mind. Is this even working? The invisible phase. Progress is invisible before it becomes obvious. That's the part nobody prepares you for. Growth happens underground first. Like roots forming beneath the surface before anything breaks through the soil. You water it. You protect it. You wait. And for a long time it looks like nothing is happening. But something is happening. You're growing but it doesn't show yet. You're improving but it's quiet. Your habits are shifting. Your discipline is forming. Your mindset is hardening. None of it is flashy. None of it is shareable. None of it feels rewarding. And because there's no visible progress, most people assume there is no progress. That's where they leave. Why most people stop right here. This is the most dangerous part of any journey. Not the beginning, beginnings are exciting. Not the peak, peaks are rewarding. The middle. The slow middle where effort becomes routine and results haven't caught up yet. This is where motivation fades. This is where consistency feels pointless. This is where comparison creeps in. You start looking around and thinking everyone else is moving faster. That others figured something out you didn't. That maybe you're just not built for this. And quitting starts to feel logical. Responsible even. You tell yourself, I gave it a fair shot. Maybe this just isn't for me. I can always come back later. But later rarely comes. The quiet improvement you can't see. What you don't realize in that phase is this. Your progress hasn't stopped. It's just not loud yet. Your body is adapting. Your brain is learning. Your tolerance for discomfort is expanding. You're becoming someone who can handle more, even if you don't feel stronger yet. And that matters more than visible success. Because visible success is fragile without inner growth. Staying when it feels pointless. The people who make it aren't the most talented. They're the ones who stayed when it felt pointless. They stayed when motivation disappeared. They stayed when results were delayed. They stayed when nobody noticed. Not because they were confident, but because they decided to trust the process even when it was quiet. They showed up tired. They showed up uncertain. They showed up without proof. And that decision, repeated enough times, changes everything. The shift nobody sees coming. If you stay, if you keep showing up, there's a moment where everything shifts. It doesn't announce itself. There's no dramatic music. No instant transformation. Just one day where something feels different. Your work feels smoother. Your reactions feel calmer. Your confidence feels real, not forced. You look back and realize you're not who you were a few months ago. And suddenly things start clicking. The progress that was invisible starts becoming obvious. Why that moment feels sudden. From the outside it looks like overnight success. But it's not. It's delayed impact. It's weeks of effort stacking quietly. It's habits compounding. It's skills sharpening slowly. The world only notices when results show up. But results only show up because you didn't leave early. What quitting too early costs you. When people quit in the invisible phase, they don't just lose progress. They lose trust in themselves. They teach their mind. I stop when it gets quiet. I stop when it's slow. I stop when I don't see results fast. And that pattern repeats everywhere. But staying, even when it's boring, builds something rare. Self-trust. The discipline that changes identity. Discipline isn't loud. It doesn't feel heroic. Most days it feels repetitive and dull. But it rewires who you are. Each time you show up when it would be easier to quit, you send a message to yourself. I don't leave early. I finish what I start. I can handle slow progress. That identity becomes unshakable. Growth is not linear, it's layered. Progress doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in layers. You struggle. You repeat. You improve slightly. Then you stall again. But every layer builds on the last. Nothing is wasted. Even the days that feel unproductive are shaping your endurance. The moment most people never reach. That moment where everything shifts. Most people never reach it. Not because it's too far away, but because they left right before it arrived. They were closer than they knew. That's the tragedy of slow progress. You never know how close you are when you're inside it. Staying is a skill. Staying is a skill. Staying when it's boring. Staying when it's quiet. Staying when there's no feedback. Anyone can start. If you can stay. And staying changes outcomes. The people who win quietly. The people who win aren't always the loudest. They're often the ones working quietly while others give up. They don't rush the process. They don't panic in the silence. They don't quit because it's slow. They understand something simple but powerful. Slow progress is still progress. The final truth. People don't quit because it's hard. They quit because results are slow. But slow doesn't mean broken. Quiet doesn't mean useless. Invisible doesn't mean failing. It means you're still in the part that requires patience. And if you stay, if you keep showing up, there will be a moment where everything shifts. That moment only comes to those who didn't leave early. So stay. Even when it's quiet. Especially when it's quiet. Because that's where the real change is happening. Imagine meeting yourself at the end of 2026. Imagine it for a moment. Not as a fantasy. Not as a motivational trick. Just imagine it the way you imagine a quiet conversation. One that happens somewhere inside you when the world finally goes silent. It's the end of 2026. The noise of the year has settled. The days have stacked on top of each other, ordinary and unremarkable, until suddenly they're gone. There's no countdown. No dramatic music. Just the quiet realization that time moved forward, whether you were ready or not. And now, somehow, you're standing across from yourself. Not a mirror. Not a reflection. Another you. Same face. Same eyes. But something is different. The first version. The first version of you speaks calmly. Not loudly. Not proudly. Just honestly. I stayed consistent, they say. There's no bragging in their voice. No need for it. Their words don't rush each other. They don't feel like they're trying to convince anyone. I showed up, they continue. I didn't quit. You notice it before they even finish speaking. The way they stand. Their shoulders are relaxed, not slouched, not tense. There's a quiet steadiness there, like someone who isn't constantly fighting themselves anymore. Their movements feel deliberate. Nothing rushed. Nothing hesitant. When they speak, they pause naturally, not searching for the right words. They don't over-explain. They don't apologize for their choices. They don't look like someone who won every day. They look like someone who kept going. The way consistency shows itself. Consistency doesn't make people loud. It makes them grounded. This version of you doesn't talk about motivation or breakthroughs. They talk about routine days. About mornings that felt the same. About showing up even when nothing exciting happened. They remember the boring days. The days where progress didn't feel real. The days where quitting would have been easier than continuing. And they stayed anyway. Not because they were special. Not because it was easy. But because they made small decisions, daily decisions, and kept making them long after the excitement wore off. And now those decisions live in their posture. In their calm. In the way they breathe. The life they live. You notice something else. This version of you lives differently. Not a different house. Not a different city. A different inner life. They don't seem rushed by time. They don't carry the same weight of, I should be doing more. They don't constantly replay past mistakes in their head. They still have problems, you can tell that immediately. Life didn't magically become perfect. But they don't look defeated by it. They look capable. The second version. Then there's the other version. They don't speak right away. When they do, it sounds familiar in a way that makes your chest tighten. I was just waiting for the right time, they say. I had a lot going on. I was planning to start. Their words come faster. Almost overlapping, like they're afraid of silence. Like if they stop talking, something uncomfortable might catch up to them. They explain before anyone asks. They justify. They defend. They list reasons. Life was busy. Energy was low. Things weren't clear yet. And none of it sounds like a lie. That's the hardest part. The weight of waiting. This version of you isn't lazy. They're tired. Tired of starting and stopping. Tired of promising themselves they'll change. Tired of carrying unfinished goals like quiet regrets. They didn't give up loudly. They just kept waiting. Waiting to feel ready. Waiting to feel confident. Waiting for life to calm down. And life never did. So days passed. Weeks blurred. Months slipped through their hands. And now they're standing here, still hoping something will change, even though deep down they know nothing changes without action. The difference you can feel. You look at both versions. Same intelligence. Same background. Same potential. The difference between them isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't opportunity. It's decisions. Small ones. Uncelebrated ones. Repeated ones. One version chose to show up even when it felt pointless. The other chose to wait for the feeling to be right. Neither choice felt dramatic in the moment. That's the truth no one warns you about. How change actually happens. Change doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive as a big moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It happens quietly. On mornings when you don't feel like getting up, and do it anyway. On evenings when quitting would feel easier, and you stay consistent instead. On days when no one notices, and you keep your promise to yourself. Those moments don't feel important when they happen. But they stack. And eventually they become identity. 2026 is already working on you. Here's the uncomfortable truth. 2026 is shaping you whether you pay attention or not. Every day you show up, you're becoming someone who shows up. Every day you delay, you're becoming someone who delays. Every promise you keep builds trust. Every promise you break teaches your mind not to believe you. You don't wake up one day as a different person. You wake up as the sum of what you practiced. The slow drift. Most people don't consciously choose the second version. They drift into it. They assume they'll fix things later. They assume time will give them clarity. They assume motivation will return. And then one day they look back and realize they've been practicing avoidance without meaning to. Not because they wanted that life, but because they didn't interrupt the pattern. What the first version knows. The version of you who stayed consistent doesn't feel superior. They feel honest. They know how many times they wanted to quit. How many times they doubted themselves. How many days felt unremarkable. They didn't win because they were strong all the time. They won because they didn't stop. They learned to sit inside discomfort without running from it. They learned that progress doesn't need permission from emotion. They learned to trust themselves through action, not intention. This moment matters more than you think. Right now, this exact moment, you are standing at the beginning of that split. Not in 2026. No. Every decision you make today is a vote for one of those futures. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need a perfect plan. You need awareness. You need to notice what you're practicing daily. The question that stays with you. At the end of the conversation, neither version lectures you. They don't need to. They simply stand there, living proof of what daily decisions create. And as they fade, one question remains. It doesn't feel aggressive. It doesn't feel motivational. It feels honest. Who are you becoming? Not who do you want to be. Not who do you plan to be. Who are your actions turning you into, right now? Because 2026 is coming either way. And the version of you waiting at the end is being built today. The decision that defines 2026. This is not about pressure. It's about responsibility. There's a difference, and you can feel it in your chest when you're being honest with yourself. Pressure is loud. It shouts. It makes everything feel urgent and heavy. Responsibility is quieter. It doesn't scream. It just stands there, solid and unavoidable, like a mirror you can't walk past. Pressure says, do more, faster. Responsibility says, do what you said you would. And the truth is, most people aren't failing because they don't have potential. They're failing because they keep waiting for someone else to light the fire. They're waiting for motivation. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for a wake-up call big enough to change them. But the year doesn't care what you're waiting for. A new year will arrive whether you're ready or not. January will turn into February even if you're still thinking. The calendar will keep moving even if you're stuck in the same patterns. And that's where this gets real. No one is coming to save your year. No one is coming to knock on your door at 6 a.m. and pull you out of bed. No one is coming to take your phone away when you're scrolling late at night, telling yourself you'll start tomorrow. No one is coming to fix your schedule, clean up your habits, or protect your time like it's precious. People might support you. They might encourage you. They might say the right words for a day or two. But no one will care more than you do. And that isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to free you. Because once you accept that nobody is coming, you stop waiting. You stop bargaining with time. You stop needing perfect conditions. You start moving. The thing about responsibility is that it doesn't feel exciting at first. Feels like doing the boring thing. The unglamorous thing. The thing you promised yourself you would do, even when you don't feel like it. And if you're honest, that's where most people lose. They don't lose because they're not capable. They lose because they're addicted to a certain feeling before action. They want to feel ready. They want clarity first. Confidence first. Energy first. But the truth is, those feelings usually show up after you start, not before. Readiness is not a requirement. It's a reward. So if 2025 taught you anything, let it teach you this. You don't wait until you feel ready. You start before you feel ready. That's what builders do. That's what disciplined people do. That's what people who change their lives actually do. They begin while their hands are shaking. They begin while they still have doubts. They begin while the plan is incomplete. Because they understand something most people miss. Your future is not built by the days you feel unstoppable. It's built by the days you don't. 2026 doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be consistent. Perfection is a trap disguised as ambition. It looks like high standards, but it's often fear in a nicer outfit. Fear of being judged. Fear of failing. Fear of starting something you might not finish. Fear of not being as good as the people you're watching online. So people tell themselves, I just need to get everything in order first. And months pass. They tell themselves, I'm not ready yet. And the year passes. Perfection keeps you planning. Consistency keeps you moving. Consistency is choosing to show up, even when it's messy, even when it's small, even when it doesn't look impressive. It's doing the work with average energy. It's building on ordinary days. It's staying committed when the excitement fades. Because excitement always fades. And that's not a problem. That's the point. If your progress depends on excitement, you'll quit as soon as life gets normal again. But if your progress depends on discipline, you'll keep going whether you feel inspired or not. Build discipline. People talk about discipline like it's a personality trait, like some people are born with it and some aren't. That's not true. Discipline is a skill. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it starts weak. You don't wake up one day as a disciplined person. You become one through repetition, through keeping small promises, through choosing effort over comfort, through doing the thing you said you'd do, especially when you don't want to. Discipline begins with one honest moment. The moment you realize, my life won't change because I want it to. It will change because I choose differently, consistently. That's where the shift happens. Not in a big motivational speech. Not in a perfectly designed planner. Not in a burst of energy that disappears 2 days later. In a choice. A quiet, personal choice. Create more than you consume. If you look closely, this is where most people lose their year without realizing it. They don't lose it through one massive mistake. They lose it in tiny leaks. 15 minutes here. An hour there. A quick scroll that turns into a routine. Information is everywhere now. Advice is everywhere. Motivation is everywhere. And it's easy to confuse consuming with progressing. It feels productive to watch someone explain discipline. It feels productive to listen to a podcast about confidence. It feels productive to save videos about building habits. But nothing changes until you create. Until you do something with what you know. Creation is uncomfortable because it forces you into reality. It forces you to face your current level. It forces you to see your gaps. It forces you to be a beginner again. Consumption is comfortable because it lets you stay in the audience. And the audience can judge. The audience can compare. The audience can say, one day I'll do that. But the audience never builds a life they're proud of. Builders do. So in 2026, flip the ratio. Before you scroll, write. Before you watch, practice. Before you compare, create. Even if it's small. Even if nobody sees it. Even if it's not perfect. Especially then. Because creation builds confidence. Every time you create, you prove to yourself that you're not just thinking, you're doing. And that proof changes how you see yourself. Design your environment. This part matters more than most people realize. Because willpower is not reliable. Some days you wake up focused. Other days you wake up tired, stressed, distracted. And if your success depends on you always feeling strong, you won't last. The strongest people aren't strong every day. They're smart enough to set up their environment so they don't need to fight themselves constantly. They make good choices easier. They make bad choices harder. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on structure. Look around your room, your desk, your phone, your schedule. Is your environment designed for your goals or designed for distraction? If your phone is the first thing you see when you wake up, you're training your brain to consume before you create. If your workspace is cluttered, you're training your brain to avoid starting. If your evenings have no boundaries, you're training your life to drift. Design is not aesthetic. Design is strategy. Put your tools where you can reach them. Put friction between you and distractions. Set routines that reduce decision fatigue. Because you are not just living in an environment, you are being shaped by it. Show up daily. This is where the real identity shift happens. Not when people clap for you. Not when results finally appear. Not when it feels easy. When you show up with no applause. When you show up and it feels boring. When you show up and nothing exciting happens. When you show up and it's the same work again. Because that's what life is made of. Ordinary days. And ordinary days are exactly where people quit. They can handle the big new start feeling. They can handle the first week. They can handle the surge of motivation. But then the days become normal again. And normal is where discipline is tested. Showing up daily doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing something. It means staying connected to the identity you're building. Even 20 minutes counts. Even one page counts. Even one practice session counts. Because consistency is not about intensity. It's about not breaking the chain. It's about becoming someone who keeps showing up. And here's the part that hits hardest if you let it. Years don't change lives. Decisions do. A year is just time. Time doesn't care what you do with it. Time will pass whether you grow or stay the same. A new year doesn't automatically bring a new you. You can carry the same habits into a new calendar. You can carry the same excuses into a new month. You can repeat the same patterns with a new number on the screen. The year won't save you. But a decision can. A decision changes the direction of your life. Not because it's magical, but because it changes what you do next. A decision changes what you tolerate. A decision changes what you prioritize. A decision changes what you repeat. And repetition becomes your life. So the real question isn't, what are your goals for 2026? The real question is, what decision are you willing to make today, and live out tomorrow, and repeat when motivation disappears? The decision that defines 2026 starts today. Not on January 1st when everyone is excited. Not after you buy something new. Not after you watch one more video. Today. Today you decide. I will start before I feel ready. I will build discipline instead of chasing motivation. I will create more than I consume. I will design an environment that supports me. I will show up daily even when it's small. Because you finally understand something simple and powerful. No one is coming. And that's not a tragedy. That's the moment you become the person who takes control. The person who stops waiting for rescue and starts building. The person who looks back at the end of 2026 and doesn't say, "Where did the year go?" but says quietly, proudly, "I showed up. Even when I didn't feel ready. I chose consistency." And that's what changed everything.